Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Welcome to yet another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. As always, we bring impactful, life-changing and useful information, normally cutting-edge information. We're going to talk about the insurance industry today, specifically COVID-19 as an insurance risk. And I have for you a guest who's not coming for the first time, Mr. Denford Paradza. Mr. Paradza, can you reintroduce yourself to the viewers, and for the benefit of those who may not know who you are, tell them your background.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mogobe, for inviting me again. It's a pleasure. My name is Denford Paradza. I'm the Managing Director for Red Hill Risk Solutions. We are an insurance brokerage firm. We do short-term and life insurance services. We are based here in Gaborone. I think basically right. That's who I am.
At Red Hill, you do deal with matters of COVID-19. So we'd like to really go deep and deal with COVID-19 as an insurance risk. And a good starting point is to ask you, is COVID-19 really an insurance risk?
Let me take you back to our first interview, I think sometime in February. I think there were about just less than 500 cases in China at that time. And you asked me a question, what is the effect of this COVID-19 on the insurance products? And we just talked a bit, I think, in summary, the potential effects. But I think now, 6 or 7 months down the line, I think we've got quite a clear picture of what is happening, how this pandemic has affected the insurance industry. I think the biggest question is COVID-19 an insurable risk?
That's what I'm asking, yes.
Yeah. Basically, you find that insurance, we've got short-term and life insurance and long-term insurance. Short-term, at the moment, it's a bit difficult for it to be an insurable risk because it's more or less of a fundamental risk which is affecting almost everyone. So the losses are, at the moment, it's difficult to quantify them. They are quite huge. But in terms of life insurance, yes, life insurance, funeral, in terms of hospital, cash plan, you can be covered under those type of policies. If someone dies because of COVID-19, obviously, if you have a life policy and you've got the beneficiaries, they get paid that amount of money. Yeah. So in terms of life insurance, yes, it is an insurable risk. But from the short-term point of view, it's to a very gray area that we are still trying to understand.
Should entrepreneurs out there be thinking of insuring their lives against the consequences of COVID-19 in terms of death or in terms of hospital expenses and other related consequences of COVID-19?
Yes, we've been aggressive on that area to say, look, you need to plan for the future. Anything can happen. COVID-19 can affect anyone. It can affect whether you're rich, whether you're poor. So it is very important. It is very important to make sure that at least you have something in place. In the event that anything happens, at least there is a benefit that is paid to your beneficiary or a family. Then at least they can continue with their life, and then they can at least meet some of the near expenses in the near future.
Okay. Here in Botswana, we've had 3 lockdowns. I normally call them 222s because the first one was 2 months, the second one was 2 days, and the third one was 2 weeks. So we've had those lockdowns, which have had a very, very devastating impact on businesses.
Yes.
So my question to you is, how can these lockdowns be insured against, and how does it work in practical terms?
It's a bit difficult in that case, because you're talking of business interruption as a result of a pandemic. Because lockdowns, it means that you're shutting businesses, but you've got expenses that you keep on incurring. That's why I was saying at the moment it's a gray area, because basically under normal circumstances, interruption is covered in the event that there's a fire, there's a hail, there's storm, and other allied risks. And in terms of pandemics, the policies have not yet covered that area.
In terms of protecting ourselves as an entrepreneur, is there any way that we can engage with insurance companies and maybe reschedule our premiums, suspend our premiums, or deal with associated risks which emanate directly from these, not just COVID-19, but the lockdowns themselves?
In Botswana, there hasn't been much, but I've been doing a bit of research. I know in South Africa and in the UK, there have been court cases where the insured clients, especially the ones in the tourism, hotel industries, they were saying they've lost money because of the COVID-19. And the courts, both in South Africa and the UK, they have ruled that the insurers have to pay in introspect, which means you have to. They are going to ask their clients to pay probably additional premium, and then they would cover for those losses. That's for the business interruption aspect. But well, obviously, the insurers are still going to appeal, and we're still going to be monitoring, because South Africa is close to home. Obviously, whatever happens in South Africa also has an impact on what is happening at home. But at the moment, there is no cover for interruption as a result of these lockdowns.
The question that arises, I mean, you mentioned the courts and laws. The question that arises is that you find a clause that talks of force majeure and other clauses that talk of an act of God. Now, would COVID-19 or COVID-19 related disruptions, including the lockdowns, be seen as acts of God or force majeure?
At the moment, they are being seen as a result of a pandemic, and almost all policies, let's say short-term policies, they exclude any interruption as a result of pandemics. That is the biggest challenge we have here.
I'm surprised they're not seen as an act of God, because they're like pestilence. The Bible talks about pestilence. Yeah. Isn't that what a pandemic really is?
I think that's the area that I think in the UK and the South African environment, they've been trying to put emphasis on, to say it's an act of God. So if I'm covered under fire and allied perils, definitely that my policy has to kick in. So they've won the case, but obviously the insurers, they were saying they're going to appeal the decision, because it's got a ripple effect on how our insurance business is going to be run and operated, because the claims are huge.
Let's dive a little deeper into that case. What were the facts and what were the basic arguments?
I don't have all the facts at hand. I was just reading the judgments that I saw when I was watching the news. But I can look into it, and then maybe on another space and time we can really.
What I want to know is whether there was a claim for business interruption.
Yes. Interruption, yes.
A case like a restaurant being closed or
yes.
what?
Yes. Most of them were restaurants and hotels. They were saying we've lost money as a result of the pandemic. So they were saying insurers, they have to pay us. So especially where insurers, they did not specifically exclude the issue of pandemics under the fire and allied perils policy.
For argument's sake, I would be, as the owner of Black, be going to court and saying, from the 1st to the 30th, my restaurant was closed. On these days, I would normally make so much. Can I be compensated for the profit? Is that how it works? How these cases were won?
If we use Botswana as a case study, at the moment, you cannot claim for the loss of business. You can only claim for the loss of business in the event of a fire, of a hail, storm, damage, etc., and all those other risks that are aligned to fire. At the moment, our policies here in Botswana, they don't cover that. Actually, they specifically exclude pandemics or any loss as a result of pandemic. So loss of income or loss of profits during that period of time is a consequence of a pandemic. So here in Botswana at the moment, it will not be covered.
Whereas in South Africa it was.
In South Africa, there has been a court case that has been concluded now, though insurers are going to appeal. So we'll keep on monitoring and see what happens here.
Why is it so restricted in Botswana? Is there anything we can do to change that?
I'm not quite sure, but I think this initiative came from the insured. It wasn't necessarily from the insurers. These court cases have emanated from the people who have been insured. So I suppose if, for example, Mr. Mogobe, you can build a case based on what we have lost, and also these case studies. You can get more information about the UK one, South Africa one. Then probably the people who are insured, let's say the hotel industry, they come together and try and build a case. Maybe
you can succeed.
But for now,
yeah, one of the things that you mentioned in our preparation notes is the importance of technology adoption.
Yeah.
Help me understand why you think that is important to fast track your technology adoption in this context of the pandemic.
I think since the breakout of the pandemic, I think every business, they've tried to create these remote workstations. Obviously, they require IT and technology. So every business, insurance companies, even you, Mr. Mogobe, and other businesses, they have fast-tracked the use of technology so that people can work from home. So you find that when you fast-track activities for businesses, there are other risk exposures that you might tend to ignore. Like the biggest one now is cyber risk. You find that just because people are now working from home, people are using these networks, local area networks, and
Zoom
stuff,
and so on.
Zoom and stuff. You don't know, for example, Zoom. We don't know where those videos or audios are being saved. Are they on cloud? Are they which server? What kind of server are those? Is our information safe after we have a Zoom meeting, for example? So you find that there is a serious risk exposure for cyber risk. So I think now individuals, companies, they have to come up with ideas. It's an insurable risk. You make sure that at least you can make an inquiry and check how much does it cost for me to be insured for cyber insurance. There are insurers now who are doing it on an individual basis and on a corporate basis. So I think it's quite important for Botswana to make sure that at least they inquire with either if you have a broker, or if you are insured directly, or you have an agent that you're working with. You inquire, this is my new risk exposure. How can I transfer it to an insurance company? How can I have it? Is it insurable? And then if it's insurable, how much does it cost for me to transfer the risk from my business?
Just to help the listener, help us paint the worst case scenario. What can happen if you are A, not insured, B, if somebody hacks your system when you're working remotely from home?
I'm going to give you an example. This is an example for one of our clients. I won't mention the name.
Yes.
They were hacked, and then emails were cloned for a supplier. Then they ended up paying the wrong supplier. I think it was about 3.5 million pula, which is a lot of money that they have lost. So you find that now, because people...
In other words, the fake supplier provided fake account numbers.
Fake account number, fake was the email address now they can clone an email address. So like your email address, Mr. Mogobe, you can get the same email address, but it's going to the wrong person.
That's why it's always better to call the people and verify.
Yes.
Especially when there's millions involved.
So you find that we're having so many inquiries about because clients, they tell us, okay, like now you find that people are doing online shopping, for example. There's a high risk of being scammed on your credit cards, debit cards, and even to lose money from your bank accounts. So it's always important, just inquire. Okay, I never used to do online shopping. I was going to Shoppers to go and buy my groceries, but now I'm doing it online.
COVID has forced it.
Yes,
it's thrust it upon you.
So it's a serious risk exposure.
So how do you go about ensuring that for an average company what would it take to cover that risk? Can you practicalize the advice?
Yeah, basically what we do is a proposal form that we give our clients. You can complete the proposal form, and then that form now it is used now to give you a quotation. Then we tell you if you want to cover for 1 million, for example, the cost of the insurance is ABCD, then you make an informed decision.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now let's talk about adjustment of insurance policy terms and conditions. Some of these adjustments are necessitated by the COVID situation.
Yes.
Can you give us examples of the sort of adjustments that may become necessary, and how an entrepreneur deals with those situations?
Yeah, insurance companies now, they've had to adjust their policy wordings. Basically, that's the insurance contract. Because if you get an insurance policy, you get a schedule and the policy wording. So that policy wordings, already they've adjusted them. For example, I can give you, for example, workmen's compensation, which is compulsory in Botswana. Most insurers now, they've excluded, if you, COVID-19, let's say if your employee here at Black is infected with COVID-19 at the workplace. Because remember, workers' compensation, it covers injuries and it covers occupational diseases. So it's a gray area. Can you really term COVID-19 an occupational disease in this case?
Is it just me, or insurance companies are always finding ways of avoiding to pay out? They always seem to be minimizing the risk of paying out.
You see, the biggest
is that
challenge,
me, or it's just
the biggest challenge that insurers have is the quantification of the risk exposure. Because imagine if they say, okay, we are going to pay even for workmen's compensation as a result of COVID-19. Someone dies at work. How do you prove that that person got COVID-19 at Black, or at home, or at a bar, or at somewhere else? You see, that's the biggest challenge. So that's why I indicated that, COVID-19, it's a fundamental risk. It's affecting every facet of our lives everywhere. So it's difficult for an insurer to prove that Mr. Mogobe's employee got COVID-19 at the workplace.
So how does it work? Would insurance companies just call the entrepreneurs, hello, Mr. So-and-so, come back with the policy, we need to add an addendum and change the terms? Is that how it works?
Yeah, they've communicated with either their distributors, those the agents, the brokers. So it is the role of the brokers, the agents, or whoever is distributing their insurance product to make sure that their clients are aware of the new developments and the new endorsements on their policies, because you don't want to have shocks when in the event that something happens and then you're told, this thing, though it was covered before.
Would it not be better to let the policy run its course and then negotiate during the new policy, rather than change midway in the middle of a policy?
At the moment, mostly each time we renew policies, that's when we get these new.
Oh, I see.
These new terms and conditions. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now let's proceed to the next point, which you define as pandemic shocks, payment of huge life insurance, funeral and medical aid costs coming directly from the pandemic, or as a result of an event which was induced by the pandemic.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How do you normally deal with that? Or how are insurance companies adapting to deal with that?
You'll find that now, let me take you back to the 1990s, when we had HIV/AIDS phenomenon. Insurers, some closed, some life insurers, some closed, some collapsed, some, yes, they suffered huge losses because they couldn't deal with the number of deaths that were coming through as a result of HIV. And so I think it's a same kind of scenario that we have now, to say insurers now, they have to pay these huge claims. And as a result, this has an impact on their capital. Remember our first interview where we were talking to say you have to make sure that you are covered with an insurance company who's got a strong capital base. So now that they are paying these claims from their capital, it means that they are reducing their ability to underwrite even more insurance policies. So that's the impact that it has at the moment. Here in Botswana, we haven't had much of deaths, I think, but you look at South Africa, the number of deaths that they've had, even we look at the medical insurance, And I think those bills are going into billions now, or millions, and I'm not quite sure about the figures. So this has a direct impact on the bottom line of the insurance company. There's a direct impact on their capital as well. So there has to be a lot of re-engineering in terms of the financial management, so that at least insurers can survive this wave here.
Well, let's talk about new risk trends.
Yeah.
I'm talking in the context of maybe entrepreneurs who are involved in events management. Events are cancelled. There's supply chain interruptions of all kinds. How do we deal with this threat, and what is your advice from an insurance standpoint to deal with this?
Yeah, you see, also, let's say a good thing that has happened now. There are some policies that, or risk exposures that have always been there, that locally businesses have not been keen to take up for their businesses. Very good example, like you've given for let's say tours and travel operators, events management companies. You find that they lost millions when their events were cancelled. Imagine you have a music concert. You've already paid suppliers. You've already paid a lot of these people, and it is cancelled. You have lost money. So it's an insurable risk, that events cancellation. So what we're doing now, or what the insurance industry ought to do here in Botswana, we ought to push this narrative to businesses, to individuals, to say, look, you're running a small travel agency, for example. This is what you can also get as insurance, because I have 1 or 2 customers now. They've moved from their offices, they've closed their shops because there are no travels, there's no touring. So these are the policies that we're trying to push through to the industry, to say, okay, fair and fine. They are not quite common in Botswana, but what we can do now going forward, because we don't know when another pandemic is going to come our way, let's make sure that at least you find that a premium is just a small proportion of the risk. I know you've been insuring your properties for a long time. You find that for cover for 1 million, maybe you're going to pay about 1,500 pula or 2,000
for the year?
For a year, for example. So I think it's just fear of the unknown from the business perspective, to say, okay, if I get insurance for events cancellation, for example, they are going to charge me 100,000 pula.
So you do also see opportunities, business opportunities emerging from this. Can you speak more about these?
Yes. I think from the view of the insurance companies, the insurance industries, us as brokers as well, I think now that these new risk exposures now, you find that there's need for us to be innovative and push those products to the corporate world, to individuals. Life policies, for example, we talked about them. At least any person must at least have a life policy, for example, because you never know when this thing visits your household. You have at least a life insurance policy, you have a funeral policy, you have a hospital cash plan, at least. So we're also seeing it as an opportunity for us to try and conscientize the public on the importance of insuring, be it your household, be it your property, and etc.
Okay. Now, you talk about financially inclusive government policies, and you talk about the risk for that. Can you paint a picture for the viewer and explain how this comes in?
I'm going to give you a global view on this one. Like for example, in the United States, now they have a government-funded medical insurance scheme.
Obamacare.
Yes. You see,
otherwise known in the ACA.
Yes.
So Affordable Care Act.
Yes. Yes. So you see, it's very important now. Obviously, because of this pandemic, some of those costs are being taken care about by the Obamacare, that policy, that the government-funded medical scheme that they've put in place. But if you come back to Africa, Botswana, and other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, these policies are not that common at the moment. So I think this pandemic has given the government institutions an opportunity to really look into this, because look, day before yesterday, someone in Ukunsi got COVID-19 in the villages there, and imagine the impact. That person is not even working. He's self-employed, and now that maybe he's going to be in quarantine for how many weeks? For 2 weeks, or is going to be hospitalized. There's loss of income.
I'm just thinking in the context of Botswana, where we start, if we are going to be advocating for public health insurance in general, where do we start? Where do we target? We go to the Ministry of Health. Who do we speak to, since it's a relatively new concept in this part of the world?
Yeah. Basically, it has to go through the Ministry of Health, and I think also the insurance players also have to play a role in motivating and persuading, moral suasion, persuade the government, because it's now a necessity to make sure that you protect every Motswana, despite of your status, whether you are poor or you are rich. At least let's make sure that everyone, at a minimum impossible, at least every household has some form of medical insurance, for example.
There's a thing called the mandatory deductions from salaries, or what do they call it? The automatic deduction to cover those payments. Do you think an average Motswana is prepared to have their salary automatically deducted to sustain healthcare in that sense? Because it would need a buy-in from everybody. And one of the biggest fights in the United States when Obamacare was coming forward had to do with this mandatory deduction. I don't know the exact terminology. The idea that you have to pay, including people who are healthy and young, they have to pay before they actually need the healthcare. Maybe they start needing the healthcare in their late 50s and their 60s and 70s, but they are required to start paying from their 20s. That argument, has it been, you think it's an argument that can resonate for Botswana, and do you think that Botswana will be prepared to contribute to a healthcare system like that?
No, obviously it's going to be an obstacle. It's going to be one of those obstacles. But at the end of the day, we need to look at the concept of income redistribution. I watched one of your podcasts, I think about a month or 2 months back, where you're talking about the disparity in terms of income, the gap that keeps growing between the poor and the rich. So obviously there has to be a formula that obviously, if the government is going to approach this, obviously those ones, the same way you apply pay as you earn. The more you earn, the more you also contribute in terms of pay as you earn. And if you don't earn as much, you also pay a little bit less. So I think there has to be a formula to make sure that at least, though you may not make everyone happy, but at least there has to be a kind of 50-50 situation whereby people at least are comfortable, because it's critical now. I think, imagine if we have another wave of a pandemic and we don't have something like this in place. It's going to be a big problem.
I like the healthcare debate. I think probably I'll have to invite you back to discuss it at length, because it's a debate that I've really steeped myself into. I have very interesting ideas on it. I think we'll invite you back to deal with it. But let's talk about the business interruption debate. Talk about what that is and how you are responding to that as an insurance industry.
Yeah, like I had said earlier on, at the moment, we haven't done much in Botswana in terms of this aspect of interruption to business as a result of COVID-19. But globally, there are debates, there are fights that are going on, and like I had indicated on, governments actually in other countries, they are giving directives to insurance companies to say you have to pay those claims in retrospection. If you have to charge these people who have lost income, charge them extra premium, and then you pay those claims. So now they've also now involved government saying, no, we want to protect the interests of the public. So I don't know now, like you had said, to say probably has anything been done now, but from these case studies that we have, this debate came from the insureds, people who are insured. They are the ones who were complaining because they were lodging claims to say, no, I've lost.
You mean a situation where you submit your claim
Yes.
For business interruption, and then your premiums are not up to date. The governments are saying, no, charge them, let them, pay those premiums.
Yes.
If they're adjusted or otherwise, and then pay out. Retroactively. Or
retroactively, yes. They are saying, okay, fair and fine. You are saying that this is not an insured risk. We are giving a directive now. You have to insure these people retroactively. So if you are going to pay a claim, charge for the risk exposure. They have to pay the premiums, and then you have to pay for those claims. This is the directive that other governments are giving to insurance companies. Though the insurance companies, they're finding it very uncomfortable, and like I said, that others are appealing. But I think eventually, because the government is there to protect the interests of the society, they are going to at least come up with a way to say, okay, if we can't pay 100%, we can pay something.
Let's, as we get to the close of our discussion, talk about mental health risk. What does that mean in the context of COVID?
You remember the first time we had an interview, we said, us as brokers also, we do risk management. And where you identify risks and manage them and stuff. And I think there's been a new phenomenon now because of mental health problems for employees, for example. Why? Because you find that the lockdowns. I can give an example. Your industry for this one for hotels, hotels, restaurants, etc. You find that now that because of these lockdowns, some of the restaurants cannot pay their salaries to the employees, and this has got an impact psychologically and mental health issues for them. So I think is the business world and employers now they have to at least come up with ideas to manage this new risk exposure, probably through some kind of psychological support, training and stuff to make sure that at least even if this is to come in the near future, you prepare your employees. You need to prepare them for any eventuality. Because now I think this COVID-19 created a shock. Because you've been earning for 5 years. And most of, like in Botswana, it's a middle income earning country and not many people are saving.
Yeah, the talk is that because people are cocooned in their houses, things like GBV, gender-based violence, and other phenomena manifest themselves.
Yes.
So I just want to know then, how do you cover this risk? How do you quantify it and cover it?
No, this one, not in terms of covering it per se, but in terms of, as we come in terms of support to say, this is what you can do to minimize the risk of your employees, going through this kind of stress. Okay, introduce 1, 2, 3, 4. Introduce these programs at the workplace to make sure that you prepare them. Because now, I have a strong suspicion that this surge in GBV against women and young children and stuff over the past 6 months, I think it also has a link to the economic effects of COVID-19, these issues of isolation, these issues of not getting your incomes that you are used to getting, and stress that is caused by this new kind of environment.
So it would not be per se a direct insurable risk, but it would be a case of maybe you offering additional advisory counseling services of some sort. Yes,
because at the end of the day, I'm going to talk on behalf of my company. We believe that you have to provide additional support, value-adding extra services, over and above collecting premiums from our clients, over and above selling our products.
Okay.
We have to be with them in their time of need as well, in terms of moral support and advice on how they can at least manage. Because now it's no longer a matter of avoiding, because we already have the situation. So it's a matter of how can you manage now going forward.
As we come to the close of our conversation, Mr. Denford Paradza, could you look at the camera and encourage the viewer in terms of giving them, in the midst of this pandemic, giving some nugget or some piece of motivational advice that they can take home, take away from this conversation.
No, thank you very much. I think to the viewers, I think us as insurance practitioners, we advise the public that buy an insurance product, you buy peace of mind. So I encourage the public, individuals, businesses, to at least have a discussion about this COVID-19, be it with your insurance broker or your service provider, be it your agent, so that at least you have an understanding on what you can do to manage this phenomenon, what you can do either at your workplace, at home, as a business, to at least try and mitigate and reduce the effects of the pandemic. I think basically that's what I can say in a nutshell. Let's try to work together to make sure that we reduce the effects of this phenomenon. We have it, we have to live with it, we have to manage it. But you have to remember that insurance, as a principle, we are there to transfer the risk from the public to third parties, which is the insurance companies. So for those risks exposures that we can transfer, please contact your nearest, either your advisor or insurance company. Then at least you can buy at least peace of mind, so that in the event of any eventuality, you know that your children, your family, and your loved ones are taken care of.
Okay, Mr. Paradza, we have a new feature here at Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, where you as a guest get to ask me one solitary question. A question that pops into your mind, then I get to answer that question. It's a new feature.
No,
I'm not ready for anything. You can throw anything at me.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. It's a good surprise.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Mogobe, you are a property developer. I think just from as a layman, I would want to know how are you coping with the effects of this COVID-19 in terms of your business?
It's a good question. It's a great question, very topical. But it has had a devastating blow on our business. When I last checked with our accountant, the default rate was almost 40-45%.
Right.
And
that's a lot.
We're losing hundreds of thousands every month in terms of rental collection. But we're trying to work with our tenants so that we get into repayment arrangements for them, and we also try to walk them through. As some of them we regretfully have to hand them over to our attorneys for collection, but even as we do that, we're open to negotiation and so on. So because we're feeling exactly the same pain, having to deal with our bankers. Our bankers, for instance, are saying, look, you have to pay us. There was that 3 months moratorium. It was more like an adjustment where you could choose either interest, to pay interest, or capital.
Yes.
But now that 3 months is gone, you have to go back to paying in full. Yeah. So we unfortunately have to go back to our tenants and demand full payment. And we had to also scale down on our acquisition side. Yeah. We're at a point where we're acquiring at the rate of 1 or 2 a month. Now we've scaled down to a point where we're acquiring at the rate of maybe 1 every 6 months, because it's tough. And things have slowed down even in our development side. So everybody has been affected severely, but we're determined to survive. And we are prayerful and hopeful that things will turn around.
No, that's a good one. You see the ripple effect now, Mr. Mogobe, because your tenants are not paying on time. Even me as your broker, for example, your insurance premium, if you used to pay me once or in 2 installments, now it's impossible. You can't. Maybe now you're going to request to pay for over 6 months.
That's true.
For example.
And you're willing to accept that. And we will discuss.
Now, it also has an effect on the insurance company. Because now they've got liquidity issues now.
Yes.
And when you pay your premium in bulk, the insurance company is going to invest that money.
Yeah.
And now the funds are also not performing. So it's got a domino effect.
Can you tell the viewer how they can get in touch with you? And also maybe encourage them to subscribe to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mogobe. You can get in touch with us at Red Hill Risk Solutions. We are in Commerce Park, plot number 163, Unit 23. Or you can get us on our email address, which is info@redhill.co.bw, or on our landline 391-6169, or mobile number 741-98602. We are a team. We are ready to assist you, and we work 24/7. And please don't forget to subscribe to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram.
Thank you very much for being our guest. It was an honor.
Okay. Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
All right.
Okay.